And welcome everybody to another episode of Keeping It True Bayou Saints. We finally reached the point. There's no longer a talk about off-season or even training camp. Preseason football is here. Your New Orleans Saints will take on the Jacksonville Jaguars on Saturday, and we're going to give you everything you need to know heading into the week to get you ready for that game. Let's go ahead and get it started on this episode of Keeping It True Bayou Saints. All right. Well, first of all, let's take a quick moment to acknowledge that Drew Brees Hall of Fame ceremony. Truly, I mean, if you are at all a fan of the Saints, a fan of NFC South football, a fan of just good 2000s and 2010 football, Drew Brees is critical to that experience. And oftentimes his career was partially, really overshadowed in media coverage by the likes of Brady, Manning, and Rodgers. But by any means and any measurement, you can tell that this was a individual that truly put his time into his craft, both from the work he did on the field with the Saints to what he did in the outside part of the game, be it showing up to practices early, showing up at any given point needed, even in his community work. The man was truly a professional for professionals. And the speech that he gave, where he talked about how the city, gave him their soul and he would die to protect it, that was truly impactful, I think, for anybody who, grew up in this region through all the different adversities that have come and gone. And, it really sunk home that you felt like, what many people would truly consider a hero when it comes to the sporting world had finally been given his flowers. And there were many a not dry eye in the state of Louisiana and across the Bayou region, that is for sure. Certainly moving, certainly very passionate, and one of the best Hall of Fame speeches that I've seen myself. The crowd was 70+% Saints fans. That made it a wonderful experience as well. You got to see him and Sean Payton have a nice moment there on the stage. Just truly kind of gave you a chance to recap for the first time in a long time what some of those glory years were. And, it was good to see. It was good to see. But that is, of course, talking about the glory years, the many 13-3 seasons, the playoff runs, and the playoff disappointments and betrayals by the Shield. But I digress. We are now moving into another season. And what a lot of people feel like is that with this stability that we've seen, with the success that came at the end of 25, is this the beginning of the next era? While there may never be another Drew Brees, great success can come in many different forms. And if what we can predict from last season continues to expand upon itself, this will be success that is truly going to rival some of those early, dogfighting Saints teams. That's a little bit too much of an allusion to another team in the division, but let's leave that where it is. Look, truly, as we get into the preseason, this is going to be a position battles focused preseason. Kellen Moore is now truly turning this into his team. The amount of Sean Payton era players that are left, you can count them almost on your hand. It's getting pretty thin out there. So let's talk about what I think is going to be the major storyline for at least the first week of preseason, besides what happens on the field. Just to give you a reminder here, the Saints are going to do a joint practice with the Jaguars on the 13th, which will be a good chance to see what this team looks like outside of just playing themselves and doing all of the usual training camp things. It's going to be a good sign to see what it looks like going against other competition. But beyond the other competition, you take a look at what's now happened over the course of this weekend, over the course of, the last couple weeks here in training camp, is that you now have a significant injury bug. It's not detrimental necessarily at this point, but it's something that is raising a major concern. You have now lost a major role player on both lines of the football with the injury to both Brian Brees that happened early on in the year. Now you have also lost Dylan Randuns, and those are players that put up multiple starts for you, almost 10 starts each. I know Randon's only had, I believe, 9, but played in significant minutes in pretty much every opportunity that he was given. It shows you that you're now down, like I say, people who are going to be producing for you, people who are going to be putting up actual stats. He was re-signed, talking about Dylan, with a 2-year contract here in this offseason. So he's a critical part of the plan, at least in the short term for the Saints. They recognize the skill set that they have with him. And you combine that with Brees on the defensive side, it's not necessarily that you don't have backups for these players or that they don't have a significant amount of teammates that can step up to the job. It's the fact that you're losing people who have been there, done the job, and are proficient in the job. Not everyone is meant to be a Pro Bowler. Not everyone certainly is meant to be a Hall of Famer. But there are a lot of guys who know to go out there, get a paycheck, stay in the league, and stay productive. And that's what these 2 younger players were doing. They were showing themselves to be productive players. They played in pretty much every game they were out there. They played good snaps, good minutes, and it's really going to be unfortunate to see both of them missing for now the entirety of the season. That's all the way through whatever playoff run you might be. I don't think even with what we're seeing with Patrick Mahomes, the ACL timeline has truly been shrunk to be able to be in and out in a football season. So for all intents and purposes, these guys are done until 27, and it's unfortunate that's the case. But it was not only them, to make it even worse. You also had head coach Kellen Moore talk about the fact that Cam Jordan is facing a hamstring injury, and he will be reevaluated after he returned from Canton to be at the Drew Brees Hall of Fame enshrinement. Now, for those of you who may not be a fan of the other team that Gail Benson owns or is the governor of, according to NBA terms, to be evaluated is a dirty word. It is a sign that the medical staff is not really going to say what they think. And, primarily it's now linked to Zion Williamson, of course, and his proficiency to somehow extend that deadline throughout all of his career. By the way, keeping it true by you Pelicans coming up soon after the schedule release. Don't forget to go ahead and follow that show so that way when it comes out. Shameless plug. But I digress. If this means Cam Jordan is out for all of preseason, I don't need Cam Jordan to play preseason. The man is a veteran, and he is in a position to secure himself an enshrinement in Canton, depending on where he can finish this year. I don't think it's necessarily dependent on how he plays this year, but it is dependent on how productive he is. 10 sacks gets him into top 6 all time in the league. That's certainly going to get you almost a first ballot no matter what. Of course, the only thing he's really missing on that resume is the Super Bowl victory, but I think his work has now surpassed what that Super Bowl victory could have brought as far as when it comes to sort of a automatic enshrinement. I think he's had more than a Hall of Fame career, and he'll be recognized for such, particularly the longevity and injury avoidance at that matter. So again, rest Cam Jordan, put him, in a headset and a clipboard for, the 3 weeks of preseason we have here. Make sure the body's ready. It's healthy. There was no speaking to a tear. There was no speaking to anything like that. So if it is a strain, hamstrings are injuries that, generally speaking, even, not to mention the fact that this is a older player in a very explosive position, regardless, you're going to want to rest that hamstring. Now, you can't do that in the regular season and have the player, be contributing in any way. So since these are meaningless games by all the definitions possible, it's time to put Cam Jordan on the bench. Let him continue to work on the side. I wouldn't even say major practice contact is going to be useful all the way up through game 1. The man knows the game in and out. I'm perfectly comfortable with him just being there to contribute with the brain power that he has stored up. And, that is just the case. It's who can contribute, and it's who can contribute without needing to fully get in there and put their body on the line. And that's one of the things that you can do And you can contribute to what we do here at True Bayou Sports Media by subscribing or following wherever you're watching this podcast. We're certainly excited that we're back for year 3 here on the channel, season 3 as we're calling it. It's been an exciting journey. We're excited to see the views start coming back in, get to see some of you for the first time since last season, and just do some new things here on the channel. By the way, TrueBayouMedia.com is the audio home of the podcast, and right now we're dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties, so just work with us through that, but it will provide you all the latest episodes as well as links to follow on your preferred podcasting platform, be it Amazon, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Wherever you like to listen to the show, you'll have a chance to follow and subscribe there, as well as on our YouTube, TikTok, and all of our other social medias. We're excited to have you, and we're excited for what's coming up in season 3 here on True Bayou Sports Media. But back to keeping it True Bayou Saints, we have other position battles that need to be looked at ahead of week 1 here. The actual game, when it comes to preseason, is very important to watch, but it is not important in the way that a regular season game is important, because preseason is all about getting on the roster. It's about showing yourself to be worthy of one of the 53 spots that are going to be designated at the end of this preseason. Remember, preseason ends on a Saturday, August 29th, and then it's going to be about a week and a half through Labor Day weekend to that Wednesday where the season kicks off. So there is no more segmented cut down like there used to be about a half a decade ago now. It's really surprising that it feels that long ago, but there is a process to where you'll go from the 90 that you have right now straight to your 53. So Kellen Moore has to evaluate some of these position battles, and I'll tell you the ones that I'm looking at right now. You had a influx that has changed the skill positions on both sides of the football. Particularly on the offense, you look at the wide receiver position, you look at the tight end position. Now, the tight end position, knowing how Kellen Moore uses his tight ends, he's going to utilize multiple. Obviously, Juwan Johnson, he's secure. Noah Fant, I have no doubt that he'll be there, and the rookie Oscar Delp. I think those 3 guys are locks to get on the roster. But you also have 2 other important players that could be there as a backup, as practice squad members. But it's beyond that in the fact that these players might be utilized more in a rotational receiving role, because you also have a new wide receiver room where, again, the savvy old veteran is Chris Olave, who was, by the way, drafted in 2022. It really shows how young this team is. And we oftentimes think about young teams as, either they're going to do really good because of the youth, or they're going to fail really strongly because of the youth. And where the wide receiver room fits this description perfectly is you have to take a look at the fact that Chris Olave and Jordan Tyson are your 1 and 2. There's little that can be done to change that regarding what happens in preseason, what happens during any other aspect other than injury. Those 2, I feel, are locks. Then you get into the 3, the 4, and potentially even you're talking about wide receiver 5, 6, or your kickoff return specialist, which has traditionally under the Saints been a wide receiver, although it wouldn't surprise me if Kendre Miller, due to the fact that he has very nice running backs now in the backfield with him, has to go and do that kick return specialist job. But to keep it to the wide receivers, wide receiver 3, Devon Vele, I feel like, is still a critical aspect to this equation. While Jordan Tyson did add a little bit of a different receiver than Chris Olave is, there's still a little bit more obviously centered on your more flash, your more quick cuts, and getting open in that type of manner. Devon Vele is a target in the same way that Juwan Johnson is a target. And when you look at how Tyler Shuck throws the ball, he likes to have very large, for all intents and purposes, guys there in his receiving core. So Devon Vele brings you that with the height that he has. He has a great set of hands. I'm very excited to see what happens now that he gets to play a full season and is not dealing with the trade and, the injuries that took place. I really feel like he's set up to be, very similar to how you see a lot of these other larger receivers used in the league, where they're, somebody can throw to the back corner, somewhere you can, check down at 8 yards on a 1st and 10, and they're going to fight for those 4, and it's not going to be too much of an issue for them. Those are the plays where you go from checking out 3rd and 4 and needing to, pick up 4 yards on the ground to getting that first down on 2nd down. And it's going to be critical in that capacity because this offense, if the offensive line, which again we talked about at the beginning, is able to remain healthy. Reminder, you still have, just to go through it with you all, Kelvin Banks. You have David Edwards, new from Buffalo. He's going to be your left guard. Eric McCoy, assuming he stays healthy. Cesar Ruiz. And Taliese Fuaga, who, again, returning back to right tackle, getting more proficient in his position. I feel like he is still a star in the making, him and Kelvin Banks. If these 2 draft picks truly paid off and you had a fairly lucky draw with Tyler Shuck in the 2nd round, this could prove that maybe Mickey Loomis never really lost his touch. And to me, very exciting. Again, there's going to be some major cuts, but again, we're not going to see a lot of Chris Olave in the preseason. We're going to not see a lot of Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson has his own injury history and his own set of problems. You don't want to overextend him early on in his career. I think you're going to see him a quarter, maybe 2 quarters in game 2, and then maybe 2 or 3 drives in game 3. It's a person you have to protect. It's not worth risking him so early on in the year. Again, talking about the wide receiver room, Mason Tipton, injured. Bryce Lance, again, a rookie, as well as Berrien Brown, a rookie, but they're showing you good stuff at training camp practices. Not to mention you still have a couple, former practice squad guys, preseason warriors, and Kelvin Austin and Ronnie Brown. So it's not a small room. You have other players that, of course, got a 6-game suspension from the league. I don't vision that they make the team, even in a practice squad capacity. It's just too risky in that capacity if you're getting guys that are getting those major suspensions, unless it was some very random event. Again, the NFL didn't publish the nature of the suspension, but still, for someone to get that type of a punishment, I think it may be just too much for this year. Maybe they bring him back for another training camp if he's still available, but I just can't see it. To go to the other side of the ball, talk about the defensive side. Look, the one thing I'm worried about on defense, although you did lose Demario Davis, and you would think that might be the main key that you're checking out in preseason, look, it's secondary. And we've seen some guys get cooked at training camp so far. And that's a type of thing that is really getting to be obvious. If one guy gets cooked one day in training camp, it's just, he had a bad day. The wide receiver had a good day. But when you're starting to see the same number come up, you have to wonder, is it scheme of the defensive and offensive coordinator knowing how to exploit each other, or is it the player? And that's where you watch, particularly preseason football. Is the player incapable of performing against other teams, or is he incapable of performing against his own team? There have been many players who were not great in practice because they were going against wide receivers that knew them too well. There is a downside to working with the same person over and over again to hone a craft. You begin to know their tricks. So, you look at your starters, particularly in the cornerback position. Quincy Riley, you take a look at as well, Jonas Sanker, Lorenzo Styles. I feel like all of those guys you have pretty solid. Again, your Kool-Aid McKinstry, he might be taking a leap to become Pro Bowl quality. I want to see a couple games. I want to see them in regular season games. I want to see regular season games that Kool-Aid gives me the same performance he showed at times last year. We all remember when we were seeing Kool-Aid's mom in the stands. We know he has the ability to show out, but he has to be repetitive in that quality of performance. Again, I'm excited to see. I've seen good things so far in this training camp film. I want to see it in a game. Then you start getting into some other players, Martin Emerson, getting the right. You get into TJ Hall, even 7th-round draft pick. You talk about position battles, who's getting on the team, who's not. I feel like these are the players to watch. Now, there's another one, number 27. If he is getting, again, signs that he's getting worked up, it might be time to give TJ Hall some extra minutes in game 2. It might be time to start working out some of these other cornerbacks to see, wait a minute, did we truly get the best player for that position? And Isaac Gadum, I don't know. I haven't seen what I like to see. I lived through the Jason David era. I lived through other, cornerbacks that came in and, they gave it their all. They were there every game, but man, did you see some guys get burned. I don't want to see that on this defense whenever you have a offense that is so firepower driven. If you start having quick turnarounds and quarterbacks are able to touch up your defense, particularly in the secondary, I don't care that Tyler Shuck can give you 28 points a game, can give you 35 points a game. If this goes back to some of those, what I will consider, dark year Saints teams, we talked about Drew Brees at the beginning, there's a reason why 5,000 yards translated to missing the playoffs. The defense was not there to answer the call. I want to see, again, I think you have some good players there. You have Jonas Sanker, you have Quincy Riley, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry. I like Julian Blackman in the backfield. I like even Terrell Burgess. I like these guys, but I want to see it all come together. Again, the D-line, it's injured. It's banged up. Without Cam Jordan and without Brees, I don't know how much we're going to really see of what the opening day starting, defensive line might look like. I'm going to leave that up to, just observation, because there's going to be a lot of change, and you'll tell after game 1. But this secondary, it's going to be an observation from week 1 to week 3 of preseason, and at the end, somebody who is expected to be even a number 2 is going to end up not being in that position anymore, because there is such a tolerance that has to be achieved if this Saints team truly can reach the expectations that people are now publishing. 10-7, 11-6. You're seeing this by traditional national media. People recognize what the Saints can be, but are the Saints ready to be what they're capable of? We'll find out. And again, you'll hear more about this game on True Bayou Sports Media Primetime. Catch that on Friday evenings. Again, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You'll get that on Friday evening, where we'll talk a little bit more about the Saints game. But in the meantime, this has been Keeping It True Bayou Saints. We're excited to see what's going to happen in preseason week 1. Football is on the way. And we'll tell you a little bit more about it next week after we recap game 1. And, of course, we get ready for game 2 against the Rams. This has been Donald. Thanks again for watching, everybody. And next time, we'll continue to keep it true by you. Have a good one. This has been a True Bayou Media production. This show is for entertainment purposes only and does not render legal or financial advice. Remember to bet responsibly. Distribution of this podcast is prohibited without the express written consent of True Bayou Media or its subsidiaries. Thanks for being true by us. We can't wait until next time we keep it true by you.